But they found me in the server room. Crying? No. Screaming? No. Laughing, quiet, deliberate, losing my mind, kinda laughing as I watched the deploy board flicker like it had seen a ghost. They'd locked me out 2 hours ago. Badge denied, email blackholed. But the system was still trying to talk to me like I was the only one left who spoke its language, because I was. Rewind 48 hours. Friday night, 6:47 p.m. Last one out except for the cleaners. Paul corners me near the parking garage like he's a damn mob boss in slacks. "We need everyone on board this weekend," he says, voice syrup slick and dead behind the eyes. Push is Monday, leadership's watching. I don't blink. I don't apologize, I just say it, no. His lips twitch, not rage. Worse, entitlement, chipped. Like a vending machine he kicked didn't give him his Snickers. "I'm sorry," he asks, pretending I didn't just commit corporate heresy. "My contract says 40 hours. You want my Saturday? Start calculating overtime." He stares at me like I just farted in Latin. And then, here's the twist, he smiles. "Got it," he says. "Thanks for the clarity." Now here's where most people get paranoid, not me. I didn't sleep with one eye open. I slept like a saint who finally said no to the devil. But I should have known better. Should have smelled the smoke curling out of his ears when he turned and walked away whistling Eye of the Tiger. Monday morning, 7:58 a.m. Badge swipe, denied. Thought maybe the reader glitched. Tried again. Red light, read again. 8:01 a.m. Slack won't connect. Email dead. VPN error, user not found, and the kicker, no termination letter, no HR meeting, no paper trail. Just vanished like I never existed. Except they forgot one thing. It was the paper trail. Every deployment hook, every line of Jenkins config, every Docker heartbeat, tied to my user token. Not just permissions, dependencies. Paul had cut off his own legs and didn't know it yet, and the clock was ticking. Because I'd hard-coded something months ago during an all-nighter, a little failsafe, triggered when the system pings me more than 5 times without reply. Something I never documented, something I never told a soul. And now, that something was waking up. The first ping hit at 8:03 a.m. sharp. By 8:04, the Jenkins pipeline had tried to trigger the morning build, something light, just syncing UI assets for the devs logging on. Harmless, routine, until the second ping hit. Then the third. By the 5th, the system tripped what I called the Lazarus lock. See, I'd worked alone a lot. Got used to people treating me like background noise while I ran point on automation. Patch deployment, rollback protocol, container orchestration, the plumbing nobody notices until the toilet explodes. So one night, 6 months ago, fueled by 3 Red Bulls and rage from being left off another org chart, I buried a protocol deep in the code. It wasn't malicious. Not at the time, just a warning flare, a watchdog, line of bash script in the belly of the beast that said, if user token 84 fails to respond after 5 pings, lock it all down. Prevent deploy, prevent rollback, encrypt staging keys, require manual override from one specific IP address. Mine. At 8:07, I was sipping lukewarm coffee in the Panera across the street, phone in hand, watching the logs stall out like a dying breath. My credentials revoked. The system, panicking. Slack's dev channel blew up. Liam, anyone else not seeing the build logs? Jenkins is frozen. Becca, QA just called, nothing's deploying to staging. Tyler, WTF happened to the rollback script, it's gone. 8:11, panic escalates. Paul, finally, anyone talk to Emily? She's on this, right? No, Paul. Emily is across the street, eating a cinnamon crunch bagel and watching your kingdom slide into the sea. I saw him through the glass, pacing the 4th floor hallway. Suit jacket off, tie already loosened. My favorite part? He still didn't know. He thought it was just a hiccup, a server hang, a permissions misfire. But then payroll tried to run at 8:15. Nothing moved. See, the payment dispatch API was tied to the same automation node. Guess who hard-coded the access layer to validate against my token for redundancy? Me, who never documented it because Paul once told me just send me a bulleted summary, no need to get technical. By 8:20, the finance team was getting calls from contractors. Hey, just checking, shouldn't my direct deposit have hit by now? Inside the building, Paul had finally started sweating. His forehead shone like a wax fruit. He sent me a text at 8:26. Paul, hey, we're seeing some issues with your access. Come in and we'll sort it out. Stared at it, didn't reply, just screenshotted it, evidence. Then 8:29 he sends the real one. The confession, Paul, did you implement some kind of security lock on Jenkins? We can't roll back, if so, I need to know now. Now, Paul, sweetheart, you needed to know then. Back when you blackballed me for not giving you my damn Sundays. By 8:32, Jenkins was locked in a recursive auth loop. The system was begging for me to come home. All I had to do was let it burn. At 8:33 a.m., Paul tried calling me twice. I watched the screen light up like it owed me something. His name, still saved as white heavy checkmark Paul Firecracker from our last reorg, pulsed across the glass like a heartbeat trying to keep a dead body warm. Decline. Again, decline. I wasn't being petty. I was being precise. You don't stab the surgeon and then ask her to stop your bleeding mid-surgery. Paul, he was bleeding out code. I'd written every job in that automation pipeline from scratch. Not plug-and-play garbage either. Custom wrappers, dependency trees, secret flags that only ran under specific user hashes. I built it like a paranoid bunker because I never trusted anyone in that building to actually understand how fragile it all was. And now, they were stuck inside it with no map, no flashlight, and no keys. At 8:41, I got a ping from an unknown email. eschmidt84 at protonmail.com, we need to talk. Clever. Guess someone figured out I'd left digital breadcrumbs on the outside, but I wasn't interested in digital begging. I was interested in watching, because this wasn't just Jenkins. This was everything. Calendar sync, tied to the deploy status. Weekly reporting dashboard, pulls from production logs that weren't updating. Contractor payment authorization, locked until environment checks cleared. That meant devs couldn't code, QA couldn't test, finance couldn't pay, sales had nothing to demo. The whole place was frozen in a Kafkaesque limbo, and I just sat in my booth at Panera watching it all cascade one tiny access denial at a time. 9:12 a.m. Paul sends another message. Paul, I'll reinstate you. Just tell me what we're dealing with. There it was. The crack in the mask. Desperation in the king's voice as he realizes the sword in the stone doesn't answer to him. But I didn't reply. I walked to the bathroom instead. I took a minute to look at myself in the mirror. Not out of vanity, out of curiosity. How does someone look, knowing she just sank a 7-figure pipeline without writing a single new line of code? Answer. Like a woman finally off the leash. When I returned to my seat, something was different. Man in a button-down and all birds was sitting near the windows. Laptop open. Eyes flicking from screen to phone to me. Not watching, tracking. I recognized the badge on his lanyard. He wasn't from our office. He was from CorpSec, headquarters. Someone had escalated, fast. I smiled, sipped my coffee, and opened my second laptop. Because what Paul didn't know was that this was only phase 1. The system wasn't just waiting on my token to unlock, it was testing for intent. And if they tried to force their way back in, if they used a bypass, brute force, cloned credential, anything unclean, it would trigger what I lovingly named the fork. And once the fork activates, there's no coming back. 9:24 a.m. They took the bait. Some poor junior dev, or maybe it was Paul himself, red-eyed and sweaty, tried to bypass the token check using an archived version of my credentials from 6 weeks ago. Sloppy. Predictable, they hadn't even stripped the old fingerprint hash before pushing it live. And just like that, the fork activated. Now, most people hear the fork and think Git branching. Innocent, harmless. Not this. This fork was my legacy. It split the automation tree 2 paths, one visible, one cloaked. The visible one looked like the system was rebooting, spinning up fresh containers, loading backups. Flashy status lights. Jenkins green. All of it was sandboxed. It was a performance, a puppet show. Meanwhile, the real path, the cloaked fork, diverted every new deployment attempt to a quarantined vault I'd set up months ago on an external node under my control. None of their code was going live. None of their builds were real. It was just a ghost loop, fake success masking total paralysis. And the best part, they started celebrating. 9:38 a.m. Slack message from Becca. Looks like we're back online. Pushing fixes, now flexed biceps. 9:41 from Paul. Thanks everyone for the quick recovery. Appreciate the hustle. Let's circle up at 10. Circle up. Oh baby, you're circling the drain. The guy in all birds got up and left, made a phone call outside, pacing, gesturing. I followed him with my eyes while pretending to scroll Reddit. Don't work 12-hour days in IT without learning to spot a weasel in a polo. That wasn't a regular security guy. That was an internal fixer. The type they send when they want to pretend nothing happened, but still quietly interrogate the janitor. He'd be back. They always come back. At 10:02 a.m., I launched my final play. A simple script, less than 200 lines. It authenticated against the real pipeline, the one only I knew still existed, checked the fork status, validated sandbox isolation, then triggered what I called the clone event. See if they were going to pretend they'd fixed it? Fine, I'd let them. But I'd also take a full copy of every commit they pushed into the sandbox. Every insecure config, every broken secret key, every patch note with "fix me" left in the comments. And I'd make it public. Because what Paul never understood was this: my power wasn't just in the pipeline. It was in the receipts, those commits. They'd prove that Paul had ignored 3 critical security patches, bypassed compliance testing, and greenlit a customer data export without audit logs. All documented, all timestamped, all tied to his credentials. I didn't even need to hack him. He'd already hung himself. I just gave him the rope and waited for him to pull. 10:47 a.m. I get a text from Becca. Becca, hey, random, but did you set up a private Git mirror? Just saw something weird in the webhook logs. Oh, sweet Becca. She was the only one who ever bothered to say thank you after late-night deploys. She brought me soup once when I was coughing blood into my scarf during Q4 Hell Week. But now she was standing too close to the fire, and I needed her clear. So I lied. Not me. Could be a Jenkins artifact thing. They've been buggy lately. She replied with a thumbs up, then radio silence. Good. Stay safe, Becca. You're one of the few not wearing gasoline. 11:03 a.m. Paul sends a company-wide email. The subject line reads, "System stability restored. All teams resume normal operations." It had the confidence of a man who'd just covered a crime scene with febres and a smile. I read it twice, smirking. That meant 2 things. They really believed the sandboxed mirror was the real pipeline. Paul was ready to present to the board this afternoon, tending he'd fixed everything. Let him, because while he was busy peacocking, the clone event was working overtime. Every commit they pushed to production, every hotfix, every security patch, they were pushing it right to my vault. And I was prepping something beautiful. A single ZIP archive. I called it Pipeline Ashes V1. Zip. Inside, timestamped evidence of unreleased security patches. Source code with customer data logging accidentally exposed. Internal chat logs they'd left in commit comments like idiots. A change from 2 months ago where Paul literally hard-coded his AWS credentials into a dev branch. And my personal favorite, a JSON file listing all admin-level users with 6 active tokens, 3 of which belonged to contractors who no longer worked there. All zipped, signed, and scheduled for timed release. Now here's where it turns. At 12:22 p.m., got a Venmo request. Not from Paul, from Linda. As in Linda, the head of HR, Linda, who once told me during my annual review that I lacked the social grace for leadership. Linda, who wore power suits like body armor and blinked once every presidential term. Venmo message, lunch, please, not a trap, a Venmo message. The HR director was sliding into my payments app like we were exes who needed to talk. So I accepted. Not the lunch, just the absurdity of it. I sent back $1 with a note, bring your own NDA. 12 minutes later, Linda was at the same Panera, standing across from my table like she was seeing a ghost. She didn't sit at first. Just stood there, silent, eyes flicking to the second laptop I now made no attempt to hide. I want to know what you want, she finally said. I looked her in the face, dead calm. What I want, I repeated. You're a little late asking that. She sat. No bagel, no coffee. Just a leather folder and nerves. You've made your point, she said. But if this goes public, the company will what? I cut in. Fire me again, sue me? Let me remind you, Linda, I didn't take a damn thing. I built it. I secured it. You revoked my access. Everything I have was logged legally. The only people out of compliance here are in that building. Her face tightened, not fear, calculation. She was doing corporate math behind those lizard eyes. Then she said it. I can get you a number. You walk away, hand over the ZIP, and we call it severance. I leaned in. I'm not interested in hush money, Linda. I'm interested in justice and spectacle. Because the truth, I wasn't just planning on nuking the system. I was planning on nuking Paul's promotion. Linda didn't flinch. She just blinked once slowly, like a reptile trying to decide if it's worth biting something that might already be poisoned. You're angry, she said, voice calm like someone explaining chemo side effects to a stranger in line at CVS. No, Linda, I replied, real quiet. I'm awake. She opened her leather folder, slid over a single sheet of paper. I didn't touch it, just scanned it. Legal language, non-disclosure clause, termination forgiveness, severance in the mid-5 figures. Laughable. I'm offering you your piece, she said. My piece doesn't have a dollar sign, I said, and finally cracked my knuckles. Your board's quarterly audit sure does. Now that got a twitch. Left eyelid, almost imperceptible, but I clocked it. What exactly do you plan to do? She asked, like she was trying to figure out whether I was a threat or a myth. I smiled, finally. Not big, just enough. Let's just say I whispered. By the time Paul steps up to present to the board at 2:00 p.m., every senior member will have already received a private link. Linda swallowed, not fear. Age, rage dressed in pearls. And if we matched his number, she asked, eyes sharpening. Doubled it? Now that made me laugh, loud. People turned. Linda, I said, wiping a tear from under one eye, I gave you 12 years. Wrote the architecture you now think is a prison. Then you ghost me like a Tinder date and show up with a coupon for betrayal-flavored hush money? She stood, face iron flat. Then we'll have to take our chances. By all means, I said, grabbing the paper and sliding it back toward her, but you better bring more than chances. You better bring lawyers, Linda. She left without another word. At 1:07 p.m., my link went live. A private Notion board titled Postmortem, an inside look at Paul Granger's pipeline. I gave each board member a unique access code, just enough time to read, just enough time to connect dots. It wasn't just tech, it was culture, with screenshots of messages from Paul belittling junior devs, Slack logs showing him mocking vendor compliance, a PDF of the one-on-one review where he told me, quote, "Nobody cares how the sausage gets made, Emily. Just cook." And below it, side-by-side screenshots, one of a redacted data leak I'd warned about 6 months ago. One of Paul replying not a priority at 2:17 a.m. One of a customer complaint about that exact data issue 4 weeks later. Tagged, negligence, timeline, result. At 1:44 p.m., I got a Gmail ping. You win, it wasn't from Linda. It was from Jared Patel, board member since 2014. I'd like to meet. Privately, I believe we may have room for someone with real technical oversight. I didn't smile, not yet, because Paul hadn't walked into that boardroom yet. But when he did, be walking into the jaws of every lie he thought would stay buried. 2:01 p.m. Paul enters the boardroom like he's got wings tucked under that Banana Republic blazer. I know, because I'm watching it. Not in person, don't insult me. I'm watching it via an internal conference line I still had buried access to, camouflaged inside a deprecated Jira plugin no one bothered to uninstall. The audio crackles as he clears his throat. Thank you all for your time. I'd like to begin with a short recap of how we overcame a potentially catastrophic systems failure this morning. I nearly choke on my iced tea. He's going with hero narrative. Somewhere between delusion and performance art, Paul starts spinning this story where he personally coordinated with DevOps, led recovery protocol, and my favorite, identified the core misfire in our CI chain and resolved it without vendor escalation. Each word another brick in the gallows he built for himself. Because the board? Silent. No thank you, no nods, no fake chuckles. Just the steady hum of breathing and betrayal. Then a rustle. Someone, Jared, I'm guessing, clears their throat and delivers the kill shot. Paul, before we move forward, we'd like to ask about the Jenkins fork. You can hear the oxygen leave his lungs. I'm sorry, the what? Jared again, calm as glass. Automation fork that routed all deployment logs to a shadow environment. The one that prevented actual production syncs for 5 consecutive pushes. The one you confirmed restored functionality. A pause, then another voice. Female, I think it's Susan Chang, CFO. Also, we'd like clarification on the use of AWS access keys in a public branch. The timestamp suggests you personally committed that file, Paul. Dead silence. Paul stammers. That's not accurate. I was working with a junior. There must have been some confusion. They let him flail. No interruptions, no hand-holding. Just the steady unraveling of a man who thought he could fake competence all the way to the corner office. I glance at my other screen. My public link, still private, still untouched. But the Notion board I shared with the staff, that one went live at 1:59. By 2:09, over 40 internal views. By 2:11, Becca texts me, "Holy shit, Emily, did you leak this?" I just reply with a smile emoji. Relieved face because it wasn't a leak, it was a postmortem. And by 2:15, the board had adjourned early. Unprecedented. By 2:17, a single line appeared on the Slack hash announcements channel. Effective immediately, Paul Granger will be transitioning out of his role as VP of Engineering. No farewell. No HR sob story. No spending more time with family. Just a surgical extraction. And at 2:23, a message slid into my Proton Mail inbox. From Linda. Subject line, you win. No text in the body. Just a forwarded invite to a meeting. Strategic Systems Realignment Proposed Interim Lead, Emily Schmidt. And that's when I finally let myself smile, because I hadn't just burned Paul down. I built the stage for my own return, with his ashes still warm in the carpet. Meeting was set for 9 a.m. the next morning. Private Zoom link. No calendar invite, just raw coordinates sent through back channels. Corporate rituals dressed as secrecy. But I didn't show up. I made them wait. 10 minutes. 12. At 9:13, I logged in, camera off, microphone muted. Just a name, E. Schmidt, contractor. Let them stew in that. Linda was there in her signature crimson blazer that always looked like it could stop bullets. Jared, calm and poised. Susan Chang, already taking notes. And then came the pitch. They didn't beg, they offered. A consulting title, double salary, autonomy over the rebuild. Full architectural discretion. Jared called it like he was handing me the keys to the Vatican and saying, you decide who gets baptized. And as they spoke, I sat back, letting it all wash over me. The same people who erased me from the system, who let Paul gut my career like roadkill, now calling me the only person who could fix what's broken. I waited till they were done. Then I turned on my mic. 3 conditions, I said, voice steady. 1, Paul's name never appears on anything I sign. Not in logs, not in history, not even in memory. Linda nodded. 2, anyone who stood by while I was locked out. They don't get to stand next to me now. They don't work under me. They don't work near me. Susan wrote that down. And 3, don't come back to rebuild your pipeline. They froze. I build mine. You want it. You lease it. You don't touch it. I own it. Silence. Then Jared leaned in, grinned like a man who just saw fire for the first time. Welcome back, Emily. I didn't thank them. I didn't smile. I just logged off. 2 hours later, a courier delivered a sleek silver laptop with nothing but one sticky note on it. You're live. Build something better, so I did. That night, I opened my new terminal, untouched by their past mistakes. No ghosts, no Paul, just clean air and infinite potential. And as I typed the first line of my new pipeline, I renamed the root directory. /revenge is a service. Let them deploy that. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.